Hey guys, what's up? Welcome to T-Ski Tutorials, and this is FPS 1.18. So this episode we're going to learn how to make the muzzle flash of the gun, or at least that bright light that pops out in front of your gun when you shoot a bullet. So we're actually going to be doing two things. We're creating a particle system and an actual point light. So not only will you see that cool flash, it'll also light up the area a little bit. So if you're like in an all dark room and you shoot a bullet, it's gonna temporarily light up the room to add a little bit of realism, because when you shoot a bullet it actually does create some light. So yeah, let me show you the file that we're gonna be using. So this is just something I created very quickly in Photoshop, and what can I say, it is butt ugly, but at least it's going to get the point across about how we're actually going to create a muzzle flash. So that's just a simple JPEG, and yeah. And this episode is going to be very surprisingly similar to my last episode about creating the bullet sound effect, because we need to do the exact same thing with the muzzle flash. We're going to be creating it right at the bullet spawn, right where the bullet is created. And then we have a problem. Like if we're shooting while running, those muzzle flashes are going to move, or I mean they're not going to move, they're going to stay where they are while we are moving. So the gun is going to go through the muzzle flashes, or the muzzle flashes are going to go right up to your face, and it's like weird because it's just like a light. I mean, it's only there for a little bit, but it's floating like, and it stays where it is, and it just doesn't look right. We need it to stick in front of the gun, so every time we shoot a bullet, it sticks with the gun before it disappears, so that we don't get it like going through the gun and doing weird stuff like that. So the way we're going to do that is, as soon as we create this muzzle flash or particle system, we're going to set that game object of the flash we're going to set its parent to be the transform of the gun. So that way, since a child will always stick with its parent, or the child is always going to have the exact same position, rotation, and scale relative to its parent, when we set its parent to be the gun, it's going to stick with the gun. And then the muzzle flash itself is actually going to it's just going to emit one particle, and it's going to expand really quickly and then fade off into 100% transparency, just so that it flashes really quick and then it disappears, just like a real muzzle flash. And then on the particle systems, there's actually a checkbox to say, was it kill once or kill after shot? I can't remember what it's called, but there's an option to destroy itself once it's done actually going through the particle system once, and we're going to set it to one shot. So yeah, and then when it destroys itself, we're going to set the muzzle flash to actually be a parent of a point light, so that point light will also get destroyed when the muzzle flash is done flashing. So yeah, let's see how we're going to do that inside of code. So we're going to be using the gun script today, and the only variable that we're going to be using is muzzle flash, and this is a game object, and this is just so that we can remember the prefab and access it later and create copies of this prefab, and that prefab is going to be of the muzzle flash. So it's going to be a game object with a particle system attached to it as its components. So that's a particle emitter, a particle render, and a particle animator. And then the child of the muzzle flash is going to be the point light, and that whole thing is going to be our prefab, which we're going to create for every flash. Alright, now let's actually get into the code, and let me pull up this line of code that we've seen freaking a million times in our past few videos. But yes, here is left click. If we're ready to fire again, we're going to fire a bullet. And we have right here, hold bullet sound. We have the angle randomization, the recoil of the gun, the timer waiting for the next bullet to be ready to be shot. And then we're setting the parent, or we're setting hold sounds parent to be the gun itself. So yeah, we're just going to do the exact same thing with the muzzle flash. So we have up here our var hold muzzle flash game object. So this is different from muzzle flash. Muzzle flash is a game object which we're going to define in the inspector, which is going to remember the prefab of the muzzle flash that we want to create. Whereas this, we are creating it inside of the update loop. That means it's not going to show up in the inspector, and we don't need it to. This is going to be a variable that's just going to remember the exact game object of the muzzle flash that we just created, so that right after we create it, we can set that muzzle flash's parent to be the transform of the gun, so that the muzzle flash sticks with the gun after we shoot it. So yeah, we declared that variable, and then down here we have if muzzle flash. So if we actually remembered to set a prefab to the muzzle flash, or let's say we have a gun where we don't want a muzzle flash, I mean, that's just another reason to have that if muzzle flash, just so we don't get any errors. But if we have the muzzle flash defined in the inspector, the muzzle flash that we want to instantiate, we're going to instantiate it right here. So instantiate or create a copy of muzzle flash, or the prefab muzzle flash, and we're going to create it at the bullet spawn's position and bullet spawn's rotation. Now, like I explained in the last episode, whenever you use the function instantiate, not only is it actually going to create the copy of the game object that you want, it's also going to return you that game object that it just created. So when I say hold muzzle flash equals instantiate muzzle flash, we are creating the muzzle flash, and then since this whole thing also, not in addition to creating it, returns the game object of the muzzle flash, we're going to set that muzzle flash to save inside of the variable hold muzzle flash, because hold muzzle flash is of type game object. So now we have we created the muzzle flash, and now we saved the game object of that muzzle flash inside of the variable hold muzzle flash. So now we have inside of a variable the muzzle flash that we just created. Now once we're done shooting, we're actually going to use this line of code down here. So if hold muzzle flash, so if we actually have a game object saved inside of the variable hold muzzle flash, so that means as long as we have this game object saved inside of hold muzzle flash, and that game object hasn't destroyed itself yet and it's still there, it's going to perform the next line of code, which is hold muzzle flash dot transform dot parent equals transform. So hold muzzle flash is a game object, and then we're accessing the transform of that game object, and then we are setting the parent of that game object to be transform, or the transform that is attached to the script, which is going to be the gun. So its parent is now going to be the gun. So now, since it's at the position of bullet spawn, 'cause that's where we created it, and then we set its parent to be the gun, it's always going to stick with the gun and stay exactly where we created it in or relative to the gun and how it's pointing and the position and rotation of that gun. So yeah, that's all you need to know about how to make the muzzle flash. I'm going to cut the green screen and go into Unity and show you how to do that inside of Unity. Cool. Alright, here we are inside of Unity, and first things first, let's actually import the texture of the muzzle flash. So where did I save that? Is this it? Muzzle flash JPEG? Yes, it is. That's the file I want. So here's the muzzle flash, and now we need to create a material for that. So let's create a material, and let's call this muzzle flash, and drag and drop that there. And the effect I want to do is going to be particles additive. So what additive is going to do is it's just going to make it brighter. So it's going to brighten up things. So as you can see, the background of the muzzle flash is black. So when things are black, that's just going to be transparent. Whereas where it's white, that's going to brighten up that area. So let's see if if it looks better when it's a cube. I don't know, but I think you get the point. It just, things that are white will get brighter, and things that are black will just be transparent. So that's the material that I want to use. And now let's actually create a particle system. So I'm going to go to the gun, and now game object. Let's create an empty game object, and let's put it right at the tip of the barrel. And where's the camera? I'm going to move the gun and this new game object backwards towards the camera just a little bit so that it looks right. Let me move this point light too. So let's see if I move it. I gotta move it farther away so things are less super bright. Not quite what I was trying to do. There we go. Whatever. I was just trying to mess with the camera and make it look a little better, but okay. So here's our empty game object, and I just stuck it right in front of the gun just so that we can see what it's going to look like in front of the gun, make sure everything's the right size. But I'm going to call this muzzle flash. And now there's a couple of components I need to add, and we need to go to the particles, and I'm going to do an ellipsoid particle emitter. So basically this is a sphere or oval shape of just generally where particles are going to be. But the ellipsoid, I actually want to make it size 0, 0, 0 so that it always is created in the exact same place, because I don't need it to be created inside of a random circle. So let's see, we have min size, max size, 0.1. So we're going to have it start at 0.1. Energy, this is the number of seconds that the particle is going to last. So let's set that to 0.5 for both min and max so that it's always 0.5. And the minimum and maximum emission, this is the number of particles that we're going to create. And for our case, we just want to create one. So, and we also want it to be a one shot because we only want it to create once and then just be done. All right. And then simulate in world space. I think we're going to leave that checked. So yeah, now let's, the next part of the particle emitter is the particle animator. So the particle animator basically just does what it sounds like. It just animates the particle. So I'm going to change this a little bit. I'm going to have it start off at full transparency and then go down from there. So I'm going to set that to about half. Set that to, I don't know, there. And I'm going to set that last one to completely 0, so completely transparent. And then size grow, I think we're going to want to set this to a value of about, let's start with 1 and then go from there. And then auto destruct, we want that to be checked because we want the gun to actually, or not the gun, we want the muzzle flash to kill itself or destroy itself when it's done animating. So the last part we need is the particle renderer. So the particle renderer, there's not a whole lot that we actually need to do with this, I don't think. We just need it to be there, and all the settings where it is right now, we can go ahead and just leave. So let's drag and drop the material muzzle flash onto it, and then as you can see, we have it right there. And 1 was definitely not enough for size grow. Let's set it to 5. Get in there. 5 is a little better. Let's do 25. No, 35. Okay. Still not fast enough. Let's just set it to like 100. I'm thinking that's a little slow. So I'm going to set its energy, so the number of seconds that this thing is going to last, to 0.2. I think that might be a little better, but I need to make size grow even more. Let's set that to about 1,000. Even more. Let's set it to 10,000. 10,000 looks pretty good. Does that look like a muzzle flash to you guys? I don't know. I think I need to set the transparency so that it stays, what's it called when it's not transparent? The opposite of transparent, so that you can see it longer. That's beginning to look like a muzzle flash. I'm going to set the size grow to 50,000. There we go. That's more what I'm looking for. That's kind of the effect that I want. Now we need to do one more thing. We need to create a point light. And we're going to drag and drop that point light on top of the muzzle flash, so that point light's parent is the muzzle flash. Now let's set that position to 0, 0, 0 so that it's right on top of that muzzle flash. And let's adjust that until it looks about right. I'm looking for it to light up the floor. It's right now it's just lighting up the gun. Let's see if maybe I make this sphere a little bigger. I think I can change it right here. Yeah, I can. So I'm gonna make that a little bigger. The intensity, that's a pretty bright flash, but let's go ahead and set it like that. Alright, now I'm going to create a prefab, and we're going to call this Muzzle Flash. And we're going to go ahead and just drag and drop that onto there. And now that we have it saved in a prefab, we can go ahead and just delete that. So now let's go into our gun script and actually get this set up. So right here, I'm going to set the variable that we need, Muzzle Flash game object, just like the bullet sound. So code-wise, this is going to be the exact same thing as the bullet sound. So we have muzzle flash. Let's drag and drop our prefab onto there. And now let's go back into mono develop. And now we need the variable hold muzzle flash game object. And I'm going to go ahead and just copy and paste everything from creating the bullet sound and just change out bullet sound with muzzle flash. Muzzle flash. And now we're going to have hold muzzle flash equal instantiate muzzle flash. And we're going to copy and paste this line of code down here. And we're going to change it from hold sound to hold muzzle flash. Oops. And we're going to have hold muzzle flash dot transform dot parent equal transform. So we are declaring the variable hold muzzle flash up here, which is different from muzzle flash. This is going to be what we define in the inspector that saves the prefab that we want the muzzle flash to be. And now we have, if we have that prefab saved, we're going to set hold muzzle flash to be the muzzle flash that we just created at the bullet spawn. And then down here we're going to have, if we have something saved inside of this hold muzzle flash variable, we're going to set that muzzle flash's transform dot parent to equal transform, or to equal the gun, so that that muzzle flash stays with our gun while we're running around. So how about let's run this game and see how it looks. Looks pretty good, but I need to change something. I believe down, where is it? Muzzle flash, muzzle flash. I think I need to uncheck simulate in world space. So what simulate in world space does is basically it means that as this particle emitter moves around in the world, the particles are going to stay where they are based on where they were created and where they were already moving. Whereas if I uncheck it, all of the particles are going to move with the particle system as we move around. So I think now, yep, there we go. Now it's looking a little better. I think I need to move my bullet spawn a little bit more forward. So let's go to bullet spawn. Let me zoom in a bit. Yeah, that's like way too close to the gun. I'm gonna bring it forward a little bit. And now let's see if that there we go. That looks a lot better. I'm gonna get that that light isn't showing up the way I want it to. I think I need to bring it more forward. That's really forward, but let's just see if that's working. That's way too forward. Let me bring it back. I'm thinking right there is probably going to be good. point light is just oh, whoops, wrong one. Okay, point light. Let's set the intensity. Why not? Just all the way up. And range. Why not? All the way up. So let's see what it looks like now. There we go. Actually, that's way too bright. And it's being a bit glitchy. I don't know if that's because my computer is slow. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, I think it's because my computer is going slow. It must be because I'm screen recording. Unity just doesn't want to create a bunch of point lights over on top of each other. So let me turn down the the intensity. Yeah, that's a little better. And now let's see what happens if I get rid of the was it directional light? Or is this a point light? I undo that. I could have sworn, oh yeah, it's inside of level stuff. Here it goes. So I'm going to disable this point light and enable the directional light again. Alright, now that there's only one light in our scene, yeah, now the bullets are firing a lot better. So that was just a performance issue, why the bullets weren't spawning, or why the point light wasn't spawning. But as you can see, the muzzle flash is working, and now the point lights are working because I don't have too many point lights in our scene. So that might work a little better. I know my computer can handle it a lot better when there's not screen recording going on. But yeah, that's how to create a muzzle flash for your gun and an actual point light so that it looks like it's a real muzzle flash and it's really lighting up the place. So yeah, now our gun actually looks pretty cool. It has sound effects and a muzzle flash. So yeah, looking good. Alright, cool. Till my next episode, I'll see you guys later. Keep making games.